Well, one of our users is having difficulty drawing shallow arcs. He wants to use a shallow arc. I'm not quite sure for what purpose, but as an example, let's look at this little logo here, and let's imagine that we wanted to put a band under the horizontal band that represents the ground surface, and we want to do that with a horizontal, not a horizontal, but an arc, a very shallow arc to represent subsurface irrigation. Well, let's pan the drawing across and let's make a zoomed out view of the logo as a focus. And the reason for that is to draw an arc that's relatively shallow. I'm going to draw an arc, and I'll choose a 3-point arc. You can't really use any of these other options on an arc command because we don't have any start points, end points, or whatever. So we can click here, and I'll click well off to the left. I haven't got any switches on, so I'm not being forced by polar or ortho to go horizontally. So I'll just drop down a little and then come over on the other side approximately that distance. I'll select the arc, and sometimes that's a little difficult to pick a very shallow arc like that, so you might have to click it at one end. You may be able to see over on the left hand side in the properties box that the arc's got a total angle of 3 degrees. So if we zoom out and pan down, can you see that the center point for this arc is way up to the top of the screen? So we clearly can't find that center point terribly easily. So we have our shallow arc. Sometimes the arc can be difficult to select, but I find zooming out and picking the arc near the end is a convenient way. So now we want to draw what will be illustrative of a band of under subsurface irrigation water. So to do that, I'm going to pick Modify and then Offset. We can select the arc by picking it near the end there, and then just move into the center here and make a through point the distance that we need. Now let's trim this, because our question our users ask, how can you trim lines and arcs without deleting? That may seem a strange thing to say, but I understand it's all about where you pick the arc and how you go about trimming these shallow arcs. So let's draw a line from the end of there, and with polar on we draw a line vertically down, repeat the line again. I'm using the right mouse button to call up the last 2 or 3 commands that I've been using. Now we can use trim. So it's Modify and Trim. There's a shortcut for that if you want it. We're asked first to select the edge, the cutting edge. These will be the cutting edge, so we want to trim off these arcs. So I'm going to pick both of those as a cutting edge, and then I'll come over here and pick, let me repeat that again. Trim, I didn't hit properly. We want that one and that one. Now watching in the prompt as I hit the right mouse button, now I can select the object to trim. So this one here and that one there, and again coming near the end of the arc there, and return. Now we've trimmed the arc, and that can be a little tricky. And in fact, if you pick in the wrong order, the arcs disappear, and you end up trimming off the wrong part of the arc. I'll try and demonstrate that in a moment, but let's see if we can do it properly first. So repeat trim. Again, this is we want to know which is the cutting edge. Now this time we have to pick this arc and this arc, the 2 new arc pieces that are left. Right click, then knock off bits like so, and we're done. Now we could just use a crossing box, pick those, right click and join, and then select the poly line, pick a color, let's pick a color like so, and let's fill it, and there's our sort of band, and then I can move that band up. Let's do that, and we'll move it up and pop it in that position there. So as we zoom out, we've got a logo that roughly represents some subsurface irrigation. I might have to rotate and twist that a little to make it a little better, but let me undo and let's get back to where we were, and one more undo I think, and that's where we were when we started doing the trimming. You may remember that I selected these little vertical lines that we drew as the cutting edge first, so let's pick trim again, but this time instead of picking those we'll pick the two arcs as the cutting edge, like so. Now we're asked to select the objects to trim, and let's imagine we want to trim off these, and the first one works reasonably well, and let's take the second one, that works reasonably well, pick there, and we're done. So now we've got two little lines, pick trim again, and this time I'm going to pick this tiny little line that's left in there, and then this line here, and now we're asked to pick the objects to trim, so we want to knock off these, and again I've got to zoom out and pick there and then pick over here. Can you see what's happened? I've lost the arc, part of that arc disappears. So if at first you don't succeed, try again and change the order of trimming when you're working. So I hope that helps. Very shallow arcs like this and trimming off very small pieces like that can be just a little difficult, but remember, if you just vary your order of picking, the thing to remember is first select the cutting edge, then right click and select the object to be trimmed, trim it off and work that way.